Welcome back to the Doug Show. I can call it that when it's just me. The Bill and Doug Show. Glad you guys are here. YouTube channel up and running. Our podcast feed is now up and running. You can find us there. The Substack is up and running. Bill and Doug OSU.substack. You Google Substack and Bill and Doug. Anyway, the full force of what Bill Landis and I are doing is now fully underway. Audio, video, that's this, written word, free stuff here. Premium stuff on Substack. We are planning a premium show and podcast on Substack on Wednesday, where Bill and I will compare what happened in 2015 with the Ohio State Buckeyes as defending national champs with what could be happening this year with 2025 as the Ohio State Buckeyes try to repeat for the first time in history. We have at least 5 lessons that we think this team can learn from 2015. Bill and I both covered that team. We're going to talk about that, but that got me thinking as we are in this week with the NFL getting started, about sort of the identity of Ohio State football. And I do think in this day and age, clearly, where I certainly believe this, I mean, not this point, everybody believes this. The NFL is the biggest sport in the United States. I think college football second. I don't even know if there's much of a disagreement about that. That's the power of football in this country. And I would argue that I think football itself is the most unifying thing in a fractured nation. Everybody, almost, not everybody. Everybody's aware of football, but then the type of people who love football, there's no single group, right? It crosses gender, it crosses race, it crosses age, it crosses geography, it crosses religion. Like, it is a unifying force. And so when college football is 2, but the NFL is 1, part of your identity as a college football program is tied up, I think, in what your guys are doing at the NFL level. And I just wrote a story on Substack because I can remember a time when I was covering the Buckeyes, and I think I wrote a story about it, and I couldn't find it. I went by, I've like subscribed to the old newspaper archive website. I couldn't find it. But I remember thinking, like, there was a time when Tom Brady was representing Michigan in the NFL and Drew Brees was representing Purdue, and sort of thinking, like, man, like, who's the face of Ohio State football in the NFL back at that time, 12, 15 years ago? And you had a guy like A.J. Hawk. You had some people there, but it wasn't the same, maybe to the same level. What J.J. Watt was doing as a Wisconsin Badger, right? It wasn't the same level. You like the best of Ohio State in the NFL maybe wasn't quite at that same level. And now you think Ohio State's basically doubled its number of NFL players in the last 10 years. And there's also a changing of the guard happening here that I think is very appropriate. And Ohio State's been interesting in that these recent national titles have been about a decade apart, right? So you go 02, you go 12 years to 14, and now you go 10 years to 24. And then, like, the hearts of those teams went on to the NFL. And as one, bodies and brains, man, NFL careers don't, like, long NFL careers last a decade. So by the time you have a national championship team that was led by a bunch of future NFL guys, a decade later, most of them have cycled out. And that's happening right now. So there is a changing of the guard happening for Ohio State football at the NFL level that I think is worth acknowledging. And that's what we're going to talk about here just a little bit. Bill's breaking down film against Tech. He's in his 14th film breakdown, so he didn't want to do this conversation. But else we're getting ready for that big show. On Wednesday, we'll have our picks for Ohio State versus Grambling State on Thursday. Lots of stuff coming your way. 15 guys from last year's Ohio State team made 53-man NFL rosters. That's the draft picks plus Josh Fryer as a free agent. And it's a refresh. And it is happening at the end of the cycle for the group that came in 2016, because that group in 2016, there were 12 draft picks that year for Ohio State, and only 4 of those 12 remain on NFL rosters in some form right now. Eli Apple is on the practice squad for the San Francisco 49ers, and then 3 guys are on active rosters. Joey Bosa, who spent his first 9 seasons with the Chargers and is now with the Buffalo Bills. Taylor Decker, who was going into year 10 as a starting tackle with the Detroit Lions, and he suffered through the down period in Detroit football, and to see what the Lions have become now. And Taylor Decker has been a decade-long stalwart. He started 126 games in the NFL. Every game that he's played as an NFL player has been a start. So in 9 years, he started 120. He's been a starter every year. Remarkable. And then Nick Vannett, great career, tight end. I don't know that you would have guessed that Nick Vannett would be the other guy sticking around this long, but that group is cycling out. So there are only 4 of those 12 guys left. And now here come the new 15 guys. The 15 new guys this year, right, in this class. And you look back, for instance, Ohio State, their big draft class after the 2002 national title came in 2004. It was similar to the 2014 team. It wasn't the year after the title. It was the next year when the guys all hit the NFL. By the time, so that group came out in the NFL draft in 2004. By the time the next, like that next national championship group came around in the 2016 draft for the 2016 NFL season, none of those guys from 2004 were still in the NFL. None of them lasted that long. That's not unexpected, right? But none of them were into their 12th, 13th year where they were still around. There were guys, the 2006 NFL draft class for Ohio State, I think is similarly remembered. That 2004 class was huge, 14 players. The 2006 class had 9 guys, but it had 5 first rounders. So I think we're going to use them as a little bit of a jumping off point. There were 3 guys from that draft class who were still in the league in 2016. They were kind of hanging on to pass the torch. A.J. Hawk, Dante Whitner, and Nick Mangold. 2016 was the last year in the NFL for all those guys. A.J. Hawk played 1 game in Atlanta. Dante Whitner played 11 games in Washington, and Nick Mangold played 8 games with the Jets, the only team he ever played for. So those guys were all first-round picks, and they held on until 2016. So that year in 2016, if you looked at, hey, how many Buckeyes are in the NFL, you would have had these 3 guys from the 2006 class who are now passing it to the guys to the 2016 class. And now that 2016 class, there are 4 guys left who are now passing the torch to this 2025 draft class. And I think sort of linkage over the years as you connect guys through a program, I'm very interested in that. The idea that I played with this guy and then he went on and did this, but then I also played with this guy at the end of his career when I was starting out. I'm always finding that very fascinating. So the idea that this is the new era of Ohio State football. And I'm curious if you guys want to leave this in the comments on YouTube or something, if you're listening on a podcast, if you want to leave a comment in there, the idea of like, I think Ohio State fans care about the NFL. There was a time early in my career covering where I think I thought they cared more, but I came, I think, to understand over time. You care about the guys now. You always care about the now. And sometimes I actually think you're more interested in the future than you are in the past, that you would rather hear about the 17 or 18-year-old who's going to be a Buckeye than the 24 or 25-year-old who used to be a Buckeye and is now in the NFL. But I know a lot of you watch games on Sunday. The NFL is going to start on Thursday this week, and I'm sure you have pride in watching Ohio State guys do their thing. So I do think it matters. And then all those times, right? The Ohio State University, when guys are introducing themselves. Ohio State right now, 57 guys on the 53-man roster. Quinshon Judkins is going to get his contract signed with the Browns any moment and probably play in the opener. He'd be 58. That's tied for second. That's tied for second for all colleges right now at a time when 10 years ago, the Buckeyes weren't in the top 10. We're not in the top 10 of guys in the NFL. So I think this is here to stay. I asked Ryan Day about it on Tuesday. He gave a long answer about it that I wrote about at Substack. But I do sort of, as a tip of the cap on the way out, I just sort of want to run through that 2016 NFL draft class and how they did, what they did, as we kind of get ready to say goodbye to them. So they made a total of 12 Pro Bowls. And Taylor Decker still could make one. Joey Bosa, that draft class, 12 guys drafted in 2016. Joey Bosa made 5. Ezekiel Elliott made 3. Michael Thomas made 3. And Taylor Decker made 1. He made his first one last year. First Pro Bowl last year. So he could still add to this. Let's run through that group very quickly because, again, these are the guys who have been among the best representatives for Ohio State in the NFL for the last decade. Joey Bosa was the first Ohio State guy drafted that year. 9 seasons with the Chargers, now in Buffalo, 5 Pro Bowls. Some injury stuff, not acknowledged like right now, certainly as one of the best edge guys in the NFL, not with Myles Garrett, not with TJ Watt, not with his brother, right? Nick Bosa, who's 3 years younger, but a really good NFL career. 5 Pro Bowls. I mean, of course. Ezekiel Elliott. There's 2 guys in this group that I think are sort of maybe signaling the passing of the torch here. Ezekiel Elliott and Von Bell, not with teams. Neither, to my knowledge, has officially announced a retirement, but it seems like they're probably both done after really productive 9-year NFL careers. Zeke, 8 years in Dallas, 1 year in New England, 9,130 rushing yards in his career from 2016 to 2024. That period, those 9 years, second most in the NFL behind Derrick Henry. It's funny, I can remember this. Being at the NFL Combine and talking to a lot of people about, hey, Zeke is so good. He has a chance to be like a top 5 or top 10 pick at a time when we were really starting to move away from running backs going that high. And I did think to myself, man, I wonder why Derrick Henry isn't thought of that way. And this is not one of those where I'm trying to make myself sound smart. I really just did wonder, what exactly is it that maybe, why isn't Derrick Henry a first round pick? And then I also have thought 4,000 things that have been completely wrong about the NFL draft. So Zeke might be done. That's a passing of the torch to a guy like Travion Henderson, who people in New England are really excited about. Eli Apple, this is his 7th team. He's in San Francisco on the practice squad. This is his 7th team. A credit to him as a first-round draft pick. Played in a Super Bowl with the Cincinnati Bengals. Has hung around and made a decade-long career. Tip of the cap for that. Taylor Decker, remarkable. Made his first Pro Bowl last year. As I said, 126 games, 126 starts in his NFL career, all in Detroit. Darren Lee played 5 years in the league. He was a last first-round draft pick that year for the Buckeyes when they had 5 in 2016. 5 years last year in 2020. Michael Thomas led the NFL in receiving in 2019 with 149 catches for 1,725 yards. 7 years in the league, last played in 2023, had a year in there where he missed due to injury. Remarkable run there. Was the best receiver in the NFL for 2 or 3 years. Then had some injuries and fell off. And then obviously that can happen to guys. But 3 Pro Bowls, great representative of Ohio State. Von Bell, 9 years in the league again, not with the team at the moment. 4 in New Orleans, 4 in Cincinnati, and 1 in Carolina. Tremendous player, like great NFL safety, not a surprise. And then the rest of these guys kind of, I mean, other than Nick Vannett, we mentioned Nick Vannett, who is still in the league. Again, what a credit to him to be hanging on any way possible. 7th or 8th team for him in Minnesota right now. Adolphus Washington, 3 years in the league. Last year was 2018. Braxton Miller, 2 years in the league. Again, I did a podcast a while ago for a long time. Bo Bishop, the great Bo Bishop, and I talked about this for an hour. I just think there was a time when I thought it possible that what Lamar Jackson became in the NFL, I thought there was maybe a chance that Braxton Miller could do that. And in the end, I think Braxton probably wasn't a good enough passer even before the shoulder injury, but then the shoulder injury sort of took that away. I was talking about this the other day and something else I was doing about Ohio State receivers and the idea that Terrell Pryor was a 9-game starter in the NFL at quarterback and then was a 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL 3 years later remains a remarkable feat. But I just think when you see some quarterbacks that have succeeded, it does make me wonder at times, Braxton Miller or Terrell Pryor, they were in offenses at Ohio State that emphasized their skill sets and helped showcase their skills, and they were great college players, especially Braxton. But if they had been in more of an NFL system, could that have prepared them a little bit more for the next level and maybe set them up to have a chance at quarterback success in the NFL? The way we've seen some guys, Lamar Jackson is rare. The idea is like, anybody can be Lamar Jackson. I'm not saying that at all. But I do think about it because Braxton ended up trying to do it as a receiver, hasn't played in his last NFL game in 2017. Nick Vannett, again, hanging on, remarkable. Not hanging on, he's a 10-year NFL player. I don't know if we would have thought that at the time. Joshua Perry, 2 years, great NFL commentator. 2 years in the league last year in 2017, some injury stuff there. And then Cardale Jones, 1 year in 2016. 6 of 11 passing in his NFL career. And I have thought this for a time. In Buffalo, did Cardale Jones walk so Josh Allen could run? When you think about a big dude with a cannon for an arm who's a little inaccurate, but there's a lot there to work with. And when he runs, he's a truck. Josh Allen, remarkable NFL player. To be like, I don't know, Cardale Jones could be as good as Josh Allen. If somebody could have gotten their hands on Cardale Jones and maybe molded a little more, I don't know, because the package is rare, the size and the arm, and he can move. You guys remember him trucking Alabama safeties in the playoff. I've always wondered a little bit, and then when you see a big guy with a cannon for an arm who can move, succeeding the way he is in the same franchise, I do wonder about it. So, tip of the cap to that Ohio State 2016 NFL draft class. Best of luck to the 2025 Ohio State NFL draft class as the NFL kicks off this week. Again, with the guys on the practice squad and on the injury list, like there's a chance that some week this season there's going to be more than 60 Ohio State Buckeyes playing in NFL games, which is a remarkable thing. And again, is almost twice as many as a couple of years ago. Premium podcast. If you want to check it out, come join us on Substack and subscribe there to get Bill and I breaking down 2015. Post-game show on Saturday after Ohio State, Grambling State, free here on your podcast feeds on YouTube. Sunday show, Sunday Sound Off, where we dive in even deeper on a game rewatch, take questions from our Substack subscribers. We're up and running. We're grateful that you guys are here. We will see you soon, wherever you find this show. For now, I'm Doug Lesmerises, and this is The Bill and Doug Show.